Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Dividock. I'm the supervisor for the Planning, Zoning, and Land Use Unit as part of the business Planning and Local Business Development Division here in Oakland County. Welcome to today's virtual planners gathering when regional malls and big box stores go dark. Just a few reminders before we get started. The meeting is being recorded and will be made available on our website. Also, if you have any questions, please use the chat function in Zoom and direct your questions to Jim Schaefer. Jim's going to moderate a question and answer session after the presentations have completed. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce both of our speakers, Jeffrey Polkowski, the Director of Development for Waterford Township, and Terry Croad, Director of Planning for the City of Southfield. Thank you both for joining us today. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. So this is a little bit of a smaller presentation than what Terry's going to do about an entire mall. Here in Waterford, we have had a abandoned Kmart that we've been wrestling with for since 2016, 2006, that we finally have some productive uses out of. First, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. Big box retail isn't coming back. I'm sure you miss it. I miss it. I'm going to try to not talk about COVID as much as a lot of these presentations will do, because I'm sure a lot of people in this industry have been hearing about COVID and the repercussions of it through retail. But I am finding that there are a lot of different types of big box retail that is being morphed out of what's happened there. Their infrastructure is here. A lot of it is in very good condition. You can't justify tearing most of it down. So it sits vacant, it sits unkept, it lowers property values in the surrounding area, and it's been something that people are wrestling with. Storage uses in a post-COVID world have been on the rise. And they do really much enjoy to force themselves into abandoned big box retail because they're pretty much shaped very similar and the needs are the same. And big box is able to adapt to a lot of these storage sites. So again, trying to not talk about COVID, what I'm going to be citing here is a lot of research prior to 2020. Big box retail has expensive maintenance costs. It requires a lot of employees, very high retail space, very high taxes. They have a bland, sterile experience. You walk into one of these places and they feel like they're trying to appease everyone and therefore don't appease anyone. They're also more expensive than what you're seeing in your online retailers, but they don't offer anything for people to really stay there. There's not an entertainment experience. There isn't a gamified interaction. It's an online store that you're in person, but they only offer one type of each thing rather than multiple types. Alternatively, they also don't offer what these small bespoke brick and mortar stores are willing to offer. They don't have a very specialized tailored person to walk you through, give you some ideas, some suggestions. You're left feeling like you're halfway between the internet and halfway between a small, cute mom and pop brick and mortar store. And of course, COVID did catapult all this into the sun. So alternatively, the rise of self-storage. Well, even before COVID, self-storage has been gaining popularity, but it did go up much faster as all these other businesses started to close down in 2020. Storage centers were able to stay open. And since they did, they started to get a taste for people that really didn't use self-storage before, but now were stuck into their homes. And now they've gotten used to self-storage as an amenity that they can have access to. Also, nationwide, for the past 10 years, housing has also decreased in size. Even large areas like Michigan, where their larger homes are getting smaller, what we'd consider small apartments out in the east are even smaller as well. People are increasing in clutter because their housing size, square footage, has also decreased. And then also, as millennials and Gen Zs are getting more wealth, they are finding that they still aren't able to attain the housing market. So rather than saving for a housing possibility that they feel they'll never attain, they're finding that they're just buying stuff. And because of that, self-storage has now learned to really get into a new market audience. And I'm also learning that this is apparently what's causing the rise of online gambling as well. These Gen Zers, these millennials are out of college, they have this disposable income, and they're finding that they just can't get into the housing market, so they're using their money for other things. Self-storage has also been a big investment when real estate is risky. Even before COVID, this is a use that is very easy to weather bad real estate times. I mean, it doesn't require employing a lot of people. It pays very little in taxes. The upkeep and maintenance isn't very expensive. It can go into a lot of different places. It can adapt, and especially if you've got a big giant facility, it can definitely fit itself in there. And also, new demands are able to make diverse uses. I mean, as people's needs change, they're able to go from 20 by 20 foot square feet units to 5 by 5. They can do whatever they want and adapt very, very quickly to meet the needs of whatever's going on that day, uh, before COVID. So this is the abandoned Kmart that sits in Waterford on Dixie Highway. WP Carey is a large holding, $14 billion in asset holding firm based in Manhattan. They bought this property in 2006 for about $600,000, and they held on to it for decades without doing anything to the property. One day, finally in 2020, they come to our door, looking to turn it into big box storage. I just want to point out, I love this rendering because well, the greenery in the background in this rendering is just so funny to me, as if there isn't 2,000 homes back here. But this is what they proposed. So they wanted to turn the entire facility into one climate controlled storage area, and which is over 100,000 square feet. They also wanted to put 4 buildings of internal storage unit ranging from 5,000 to 6,000 square feet in the front. And they did not care for the corridor. They did not care for what can be used in the frontage of the space. As you know, Dixie Highway is quite a busy corridor. And they were unwilling to work with the Economic Development Department to do anything that would be incentivizing for the surrounding area. At some point, they did try to put in. I get a call from them one day saying, I figured out a solution, Jeff. We can finally get this going. And they said, what if we put a 5-foot fake facade of a retail in the front of this building along Dixie, like it's Disney World or Las Vegas, where we have these fake buildings. And obviously the Planning Commission wouldn't have gone for that. They really went for an all or nothing approach. So now, storage is a huge issue in Waterford, as for a lot of the reasons that I've mentioned. When I first started working here, I got a lot of requests for moratoriums to be put. I very much don't recommend moratoriums for any of these types of uses. It's very, very easy for litigation. And you're opening yourself up to a lot of challenges. I also, alternatively, I don't recommend doing an all-out ordinance amendment that bans that use. I'm not an attorney. However, I have been warned by many land use attorneys that the second you start to try to do an all-out ban on any type of land use, it sends a direct message to Lansing that the zoning approvals for that type of land use should be taken out of the municipal government and be handled by the state. Allegedly, this is what caused the giant conversation at the House bill for taking short-term rentals, Airbnbs, out of municipal zoning approval, which did fail last January. And then also allegedly, this is the reason why a lot of solar panels are now no longer municipal approvals. However, I think I recommend taking these types of uses and really making use of your special approvals rather than your moratoriums or your all-out bans, and really let the Planning Commission wrestle with this use. Let them negotiate, let them work on behalf of the township to really get control over it and make something that would work. It's important to train your Planning Commission to really have them realize the ability they can do with the special approval process. I mean, people always look at, is it compatible with the adjacent land uses? And is it a strain on public services and facilities, utilities? We get this question a lot. A lot of planning commissions I've worked in outside of Waterford didn't really look at public services and utility strains when looking at a planning commission approval, but Waterford's one of the few communities that isn't on the Great Lakes Water Authority. Rather, we have our own groundwater system. And so when we look at a lot of these big industrial uses, or when we look at a lot of these commercial uses, we make sure it's not a strain on that. But something else is, does it fulfill a gap in coverage? And so if you have a saturated land use, maybe such as storage in this situation, you're able to really piggyback off of that. And you have some negotiation power on how can you get this saturated use into your community in a way that really wouldn't be such a burden on the township. I do want to point out though that you have to prepare that if you have a big time developer coming in, you have to be prepared to be outmoneyed. They are already talking to you like they're going to try to overturn a decision at the zoning board of appeals, and you have to train your planning commission to speak as if they've already been sued. Uh, a lot of times, you'll be in a meeting where the planning commission comes in and it's almost like they look like their mind is already made up. And sometimes that just means you got a lot of good public feedback already and you wrote a really good memo. But that they still have to deliberate everything at this public meeting for the record to show that they are really showing everything out on the table. Another part is make sure you're documenting this. Your planning commission needs to not only does your planning commission need to say everything, it needs to be recorded as well, just in case your big time developer already takes you to the ZBA and is already planning to try to go to circuit court over what you discussed. So, fun fact, there are 97 storage facilities within 6 miles of where this abandoned Kmart is. There's actually 5 within a quarter mile. You could physically throw a rock from this site and hit a storage center. And so this was the big case that was made by the planning department on how this use needs to be wrestled with to, if it was ever to end up being approved. So now WP Carey did in fact, after a denial from the planning commission, did go to the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals very well documented their findings that the planning commission had a good approach on how they looked at this, and then they voted to reaffirm it. Now, the planning commission, I mean, the developer then, after walking away, pretty much said, well, we bought this property for 600,000. There is no economic climate for anything else other than storage. We don't see this thing ever sitting, anything other than sitting vacant for decades. After 2 months, it was actually purchased for several $1 million. And we've been slowly cutting this beast up into different uses. Currently, we have a restaurant and a music venue in there, a grocery store. There's an in-person retail and online retail. I'll get back to those in a little bit. And there is a gas station as well. And I'll get to that as well. So this is the Kmart site plan. Well, this is the new area for what the Kmart was. We have here 15,000 square foot restaurant and music venue. There are 2 bars, a pool hall. I'll show some pictures of this later. As well as a small market and grocery store that is also contingent on the gas station right here. There is Bin Street, which is an interesting type of retail, and I will get to that in a little bit, as well as liquid bidding, which is the main driver of this area. And I could argue that this is essentially a storage center that has a retail component. And there's the gas station right up in the back here. So first on the left, we've got a 15,000 square foot restaurant here. It's got a pool hall. It has 2-stage music venue, 2 bars. It has outdoor seating as well. It does really well in the first couple months that it's been opening up. It's an interesting kind of size. It has a very deep corridor approach, as you can see here, just because to maximize the amount of storage that we have on the left. And it's been working very well as a flex space to it. We have a market grocery store type of thing. They have a walk-up deli counter, fresh produce. They do offer sandwiches, hot pizza, calzones, those types of things as well. And they have a very large craft beer and liquor selection. I would say the craft beer and liquor is one of the big driving forces, but part of the special approval that was for this site was that if you're going to be able to do this, you have to offer more than just booze. Now, Bin Street is the main retail front that we have here, and it's kind of an interesting concept in that it's interesting that Amazon has pretty much destroyed brick and mortar retail, and there's these new forms of brick and mortar retail that are rising on the ashes of it. What Bin Street does is they purchase Amazon returns in bulk, and they put them out on these large these cars that you're seeing on the bottom here, that have all these different types of products. And they first start on Saturday, everything has a higher price. On Sunday, it gets a little cheaper. On Monday, it gets a little cheaper. On Tuesday, it gets a little cheaper, until all the way at the end of the week on Friday, everything's gone, and they do it all over again. What's so interesting about these concepts is that they're gamifying retail, and they're also making money off of this e-commerce trend that isn't going away anytime soon. And so it's just interesting to see that these online stores have now defeated big box, and some different type of big box is coming as a result of these online stores. They also offer arcade games and pool, and it's kind of a way to keep kids involved. It's the whole point of these places are to kind of have you entertained and have some form of an experience rather than just that sterile feeling of walking through a Kohl's, if you will. And then liquid bidding, which is the massive storage that's in the center of the facility that I showed, entirely operates online. They have they buy back even more online retailers. There's another one of these in Livonia. And what they do is you see it online similar to eBay. You see large pallets of returns and products. And as prices go up rather than down, like Bin Street, you bid on it until it's over, and you show up at the front counter, which is actually through the Bin Street site, and pick it up. So this is, again, this is the driving use of what is going on in this big box retail, but it's not dominating the facade of this building. It is just taking up the majority of it while still not being a burden in the area and still allowing other types of uses to operate. So now the gas station is a driving factor in what let this project go forward. There's 4 pump islands, 16 total pumps. I very much am not a big proponent of establishing new gas stations. Our township has 3 vacant gas stations right now, and they've sat vacant for almost a decade. The main reason is because gas stations are difficult to clean up. They have underground storage tanks that generally will leak. To be able to buy something and to rehab it enough for its any other type of use is just generally not economically feasible. So we also, similar to big box, similar to, sorry, storage, we have them as a very aggressive special approval process where you have to provide something other than just a gas station to be able to get your approval. So this is the only gas station that's been approved since I started working for the township in 2020. And the only reason why is because it's rehabbing this entire facility, hinging on it. The developer was very understanding, and he was very creative, and he worked with us. He was willing to work, unlike what the U-Haul Center was trying to do. He was willing to recess the gas station all the way to the back, originally wanting to put it to the front to get the most frontage. He moved it to the back to be able to keep the front of it available for some form of outlot development at some point that would be in line with the other buildings along Dixie Highway. I mean, the amount of parking that we have on this beast is just completely unnecessary compared to what it used to be when it was a Kmart. And so he's also using this area as flex space. Last weekend there was actually a carnival on site. In the summer, we do weekly auto shows, car shows, and they're quite a hit, and they do drive a lot of the restaurant sales up in the area. So he's leasing out this space for these types of shows until he's able to really be able to dump more money into the property and to be able to build these outlots one day. Also, at some point, it doesn't really matter having a gas station all the way to the front, as there's enough signage to really show that there's one just several feet behind you. All of the signs that were put on this facility were already put in mind with the idea of having one day outlots being put up here in the front. So, what is the future for big box retail? I would say it is some combination of whatever we did with this Kmart. I'd say that warehousing is a lot of what's going to be happening in these big box retails. I have here on the bottom right a mixed use concept for a storage center, something that I think would have worked really well for this site if our developer was willing to work with us. But a lot of times when you have these storage sites, you're here to make a quick buck. So they're not willing to innovate. And so it's our duty to be more aggressive on how to serve the community. And so I do think that while a lot of the massive big box, the rear of them would be suitable for warehousing, for storage, for any of these less desirable uses, as long as you preserve the frontage, it really would do something. I also think that a lot of these big box retails have major parking lots that just will never be needed anymore. So trying to parcel them out, redevelop them, preserve that frontage for maybe one day future, have that be a condition of the special approval. Just so you can, if the developer has no interest in it, maybe in a couple of years they'll change their mind, or some other person will come by who wants to buy that lot. I'm finding that internet retail can be a supplement. It's just because you do have a brick and mortar store doesn't mean that you can't have most of your business still be online. That seems to be a combination that is working very well. And working from home in a post-COVID world is changing how consumers shop, obviously. People want shorter drives. And we are finding that having immediate parking right up in front of the store is important. A lot of times people are having multiple meetings throughout the day and they're just looking to, pick up something very quickly. They're not willing to wait online. They just want to go in, get out before their next Zoom meeting. The rise of Amazon has caused the rise of Amazon returns. I wouldn't count out these businesses that are making money off of they're not glorified pawn shops. They're interesting retail components that we seem to be having we seem to be having a real popularity. We have three in our community, and all of them do very well. All of them get a lot of great business. And I'm finding that in my research on retail, it looks like there's no middle ground for retail anymore. There is a lot of high-end malls. They continue to thrive. People with money are going to spend money. And aggressive bargain shopping, similar to these returns, are getting very, very popular. And I'm also finding that I wouldn't count out the bargain price retail as just for low income buyers. I'm finding that you're never too rich for a bargain, especially when you gamify it. If you make coming in on different days, having different types of experiences, offering, a bidding war on a project. People are, you're never too rich for a deal. And I'm finding that that doesn't really seem to be what's going on in our community. Also, think smaller. Take one big box, turn it into two. We're finding that a lot of companies like Macy's and Bloomingdale's and other big box retailers are seeing that while they are closing, their smallest companies are still thriving. And I just want to also say that while most of us are in the planning industry, and every time I hate going into one of these conversations about a development and you see that some township or city that has been economically thriving for decades has a project that they'd like to tout where there's some person that's willing to spend millions and millions of dollars to rehab a site. Well, guys, I mean, we're Waterford. If we can do this type of work, I think anyone really can through aggressive special approval processes and a well-written ordinance. I mean, it's something that I think is just it's achievable if you're looking with your developers, you talking with them, you negotiate with them, and you tell them that you don't want to give a flat out no. You're just looking on how to get into a yes. Thank you. That's all I really have.
Okay, great, Jeff. If you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen, and Terry, if you want to take over.
Good morning. Before I get started, I want to thank Sarah Mullally, our Assistant City Planner, for assisting with this presentation. And Jeff, great job, very innovative mixed-use redevelopment. I'd like to learn more about that. So what we're going to talk about is Northland Center and the redevelopment of that. For those who don't know, Southfield is located in Southeast Michigan. We share our border with Detroit at 8 Mile. Pre-COVID, we had 175,000 people that came into our community every day for work. And we have a population today of about 77,000. Southfield was home to the world's first modern shopping mall. And for many of the reasons that Jeff had talked about, retail, lifestyle, homes, work have changed, and COVID kind of was the catalyst. And the beginning of the end of this mall run was just prior to COVID. And the Great Recession, I think, had a lot to do with it. But Northland Center officially opened in March of 1954. And the J.L. Hudson's Company selected this site due to geographic location near major roads and growing. The population of Detroit was migrating northwest along Northwestern Highway. Southfield just happened to be located in the right direction. Southfield was the fastest growing community in the 1960s because of this outward migration. And Hudson's demographic studies indicated a 200% increase in the population from 1940 to 1950. Hudson's retained Austrian-born Victor Gruen to recreate an urban core in a suburban setting. And I've heard stories where Hudson's was so concerned about no one would come out and shop that they actually built a subdivision and furnished it with their own furnishings to encourage the middle class to live close to the new Hudson's and Northland. And Northland was envisioned as a community center in a suburban location. As we all know, it was the beginning of vehicular traffic and parking were positioned in the perimeter, while the shops were located in the interior. There was 1 million square feet of underground storage and truck traffic and parking. The interior of the shopping mall was created as a pedestrian-friendly gathering space with art, gardens, seating areas, and it was anchored by the Hudson's department store. Northland continued to be profitable, but urban sprawl presented competition and challenges to the center. Strip malls, changing shopping patterns, and then finally the mall expanded several times and was enclosed in 1974. Target built a freestanding addition to the mall in 1994. But ultimately, all the changes in retailing and lifestyle resulted in Northland officially closing on April 15th, 2015, so 9 years ago. JCPenney's and TJ Maxx closed in the 2000s. Target closes in 2014 after opening in 1994. And then finally, Macy closes, the mall's foreclosed. The city scrambled to raise money to save the art collection. And then in December 2015, the city took ownership of the center to control the redevelopment. And this has been a 9-year process to date. We'll show you where we are today. Started off with weekly meetings, bi-weekly subcommittee meetings, and monthly meetings with elected officials for several years until we identified the right developer for the redevelopment. But early on, we went into a visioning session. We developed a plan. We saved many significant art pieces. We raised $600,000 to purchase the art. They were going to be sold in a fire sale in the bankruptcy court to help pay for some of the debt. So this was a legacy that the mayor, Cyber, and elected officials wanted to retain this art for Southfield residents. And some of the pieces that were taken from the mall will be replaced back there during the reconstruction. And this is just a sample of some of the artwork from well-known people, including Marshall Fredericks and Lillian Saarinen. Our project purpose was to determine the highest and best use for the mall site and to develop a preferred plan and strategy to guide future development. One thing the city did not want to do is become the developer. We achieved our goals by doing very purposeful site analysis, public engagement, master planning, environmental assessment, marketing and branding, public relations, and then eventually led to code and design guidelines. An overlay development district was created. And then we started searching for developers. Again, the city did not want to become a developer itself, but we focused on what we could do in the public realm. We didn't want to drive the solution, but we wanted to inform the quality and character of the redevelopment. We had 6 meetings with the public and stakeholders, generating participation from over 250 while we were developing the vision plan. One of the things we realized is the mall had over 2 million square feet of retail, and we knew that we couldn't support 2 million square feet, that mixed use was going to be the future. We also have an aging population of older adults, higher than the county, the state, and the national average. And we needed to create a lifestyle center that would attract and retain young professionals, family forming members who then eventually would move and purchase our single family homes and become viable members of our community. We held a 2-day visioning session. Approximately 30 participants were involved in that more detailed focus visioning session. Key outcomes were a need and a desire for programmable public space. We wanted to create a community park that we could have year-round events in. And we focused on public space elements. One of the things that was a misconception of a lot of people was that everyone assumed that the mall was the 100% owner of the property. And what we found out was there was actually 17 separate parcels, 15 separate owners, and there was over 70 easements that we had to clear, acquire, or vacate. And a lot of that work was done behind the scenes over multiple years. So even though we got Hudson's building for a $1 donation, we had to negotiate purchasing the former J.C. Penney's that had recently been purchased by a local church. That also included an easement of over 1,000 parking spaces that made it difficult for redevelopment of the entire site. There was environmental cleanup from a former tire relocation, gas stations, oil changes. There was all kinds of different items that we had to go through with, in addition to just acquiring the property. One of the things that I looked at as an opportunity is there's 1.5 miles of perimeter around the former mall site. And we looked at creating 1.5 miles perimeter pathway system, and then eventually connecting to our city center trail, our 9-mile corridor trail, and other access points to neighborhoods and key businesses around the area. We developed a plan to guide development, to assist the elected officials in making decisions about what should go there. Our final concept plan, planning principles included a strong pedestrian and vehicular network, dynamic public spaces, a street system, which helped define development districts. So instead of having the buildings in the center surrounded by a sea of asphalt, we had integrated city blocks that were walkable, development that complements existing land use patterns. We had Oakland Community College within a short walking distance. We had Ascension Providence Hospital and all their staff, visitors, and faculty within walking distance, and several other adjacent land uses of businesses and residential in the area. We also wanted to integrate innovative and sustainable solutions for the redevelopment. When this mall was developed in the 1950s, stormwater management and other more low impact design elements were not incorporated. And then we wanted to develop a plan that capitalized on the unique characteristics, including mid-century modern architecture. And you'll see the concept plan harkens to that. Also looking at the topography and the tunnels and infrastructure underneath the mall. And then consideration and integration of adaptive reuse. This is a photo of the power plant. It had its own power plant. We think this would be a great microbrew or innovative restaurant. It's an out parcel that could attract other people to come to the site. Our final development yield, as far as the concept plan, went from 2 million square feet to envisioning about 150,000 square feet. One standalone retail, one big box. We kind of conceded that we probably have at least one big box of 85,000 to 100,000 square feet. Mixed use of 200,000. The Hudson's building alone was 300,000. We looked at open air market, housing, office to take over that former department store. We could see medical use and medical office in support of the hospital, residential of 850 units, and a boutique hotel. Our final concept plan included a public space with outdoor amenities that could be programmed year-round. Creating a lifestyle district that was pedestrian focused and walkable. And we looked at green space and a street network. We wanted to be flexible rather than rigid. We knew this was going to be a 20 to 30-year development. It's already been 9 years since we first took over the plan. We just started the first phases of construction. We wanted to take advantage of the visibility and frontage on Greenfield Road while creating a street wall. And our today's plan has up to 2,000 residential units over various heights. We took a lot of time at looking at the feasibility of the reuse of the Hudson's building, came up with all kinds of different concepts from including more parking, office, retail, entertainment, mixed use. And then to guide the redevelopment, we developed an overlay development district similar to a planned unit development based on a concept vision plan, based on design guidelines, and it was eventually adopted by City Council in May of 2017. So I had mentioned earlier that we went out to bid for request for proposal for developers. Our first development was an integration of standard 1 to 2 story retail strip center. And the savior everybody thought at the time was marijuana facilities. They had deep pockets. They were going to take over the former mall, everything from grow processing to secure transport to testing facilities and then provisioning centers. On the 11th hour of the day that the ink was going to be signed for the lease and sale, there was a breakdown between the partnership, and that project fizzled away, and that was fortunate, I think, for the city in the long term. There was a lot of interest for warehousing, logistics, and fulfillment center. We had plans and an offer right away to take over the entire site or a majority of the site, but we didn't want to have all our eggs in one basket. We were looking at long-term redevelopment of the site and the need for residents and more of a mixed-use development. So council declined moving forward with the logistics center. We also were concerned about the truck traffic and what it would do on our local roads. And then finally, in 2021, Contour developer, who's known for residential redevelopment, entered into an agreement with the city and created a vision for the Northland City Center mixed-use development. Our first major tenant was Costco Business Center. They approached us in 2022. They're the first Costco business center in the state of Michigan and Southeast Michigan. So they kind of were a catalyst. But these are some renderings. I just included 1 or 2. Traditional 2-story retail that was proposed along Greenfield with marijuana facilities taking over the former mall site itself. Here is the one of the concept plans for warehousing a logistics center that would have taken over at least 60% of the former mall site. And what we did is we found that the average distribution center was 672,000 square feet and an average height of 32.7 with hundreds of truck walls. And that was just not something that the city was interested in seeing the redevelopment happen. That was kind of a short-term gain. This is more in line with the mixed-use mid-century modern architecture and design to bring back to the mall, complementing the original Victor Gruen design. This is a concept rendering of 5-story mixed-use development on Greenfield, with the first floor being retail and floors 2 through 5 being residential. There are now 2 buildings under construction nearing completion, with 2 more ready to begin breaking ground soon. These are some interior concepts of the redevelopment of the Hudson's as an open air city market. And then another important concept is we demalled the mall. We took off the roof, and the concept was to restore the pedestrian internal courtyards that existed when the mall first opened up. And here's a concept rendering of what that would look like once the former 5 mall buildings are reoccupied. Another thing that we were closely involved with was we knew this was going to be developed over a course of 20 years. And we wanted to have a unified look with the streetscape and pedestrian elements. So developed detailed streetscape with brick walls, limestone caps, ornamental fencing, fountains, entrance features, so that as each phase is developed out over time, it'll look like a unified developed site. Here's the phasing plan. If you look closely at the dates, we've already gone past all of the original dates that we thought that this mall would be developed. Phase 1A that's shown in the red, that's the one that's nearing completion. Phase 1B will be breaking ground soon. And the purple Phase 1E is the location of the Costco Business Center that opened in January of 2024. The green is various pieces of the original mall that have many retailers interested. We have some very exciting retailers that would like to be part of this, but too soon for us to announce. But hopefully in the next half a year, you'll hear some good news from Southfield. Oh, we had envisioned one big box. We had to do an amendment to relocate where the big box was going to be as far as our concept plan, increase the size from 100,000 to 160,000. But as of today, the city's holding firm that we're only going to have one freestanding big box, and the other large big box retailers have to be integrated with residential or mixed use. Here's the concept plans for the Costco Business Center. And if you look at the limestone columns in the brick, the size, the scale, they match the former Hudson's building, as well as some of the original buildings at Northland that when they were first opened up in the 1950s. And here are photos that I took 2 days ago. The two mixed-use residential buildings, the scale along Greenfield on the top. And then a picture on the lower right hand, you can see a corner of the Costco Business Center, and in the far background, you can see Hudson's building and some of the architecture that's replicated in the Costco building. And then the lower left indicates our streetscape elements that I hope to see around the entire perimeter of the site, including a 10-foot wide bike path, walking path. So with that, turn it back over to you, Brian and Jim.
Okay, great presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much. At the moment, we don't have any questions in the chat box. So if anybody does have anything, if you can send them to me directly and we can moderate them. I did have one question, Terry, and kind of dovetails with what Jeff was indicating on the big box side of things. Are you seeing any increase in interest from your initial estimates on big box redevelopment, or is it kind of what you expected?
Well, again, as Jeff had pointed out, you know, we weren't quite sure if big box would want to come back there, and we have seen a lot of interest in some additional big boxes. Some who have been there before want to come back, and some new ones do. But right now, we're trying to hold the line and say, you can come back, but you'd probably take the first floor space of a multi-story, multi-use building. So we're working out some of those details with a couple of them. And we've got some standard retailers and restaurateurs that want to come back. We also have some new concepts that want to be part of our mixed use development. The other thing I do want to say is we are seeing a lot of interest in adjacent properties surrounding the mall site because of what's being generated there. And that's the first time in my 14 years here that we're starting to see some real activity on some of the more underutilized building sites or vacant sites within the area. And as some of you know, we're working with Oakland County on 9 Mile Corridor, which is half a mile from the mall site and trying to integrate with all our partner communities. 35-mile Greenway corridor. We've got working closely with Oak Park on the redevelopment of Greenfield between 8 and 9 Mile, the median, doing some beautification. So we have some private and public partnerships that are all happening because of the catalyst of the redevelopment of Northland.
Okay. And another question, what's the mix on your residential? Is it all rental, condo? What are you seeing, or what are you anticipating?
Well, for us, there's going to be market rate rental apartments, but we also have envisioned student housing to support the nursing and medical school at Ascension Providence Hospital, possibly some housing for the residents at the hospital. We envision some attached townhome condominiums, and also we've looked at continuum care. So assisted living, independent living, and nursing home for older adults. We've kind of envisioned the whole gamut of residential with the exception of single family homes there. And we want to provide diversity of housing. We've identified missing middle housing as another housing type that we'd like to incorporate there. But we're starting with these first two buildings and see how that goes.
Okay. I do have a question. Brent Sabanat from Troy. He said both great presentations, but you both missed two opportunities to create the world's largest indoor pickleball court system. So
Hey, maybe that's yet to come.
Yeah.
Yep.
You've heard it here first, everyone. In 20 years, there will be complaining that everything is pickleball. I'm gonna
Yep.
we're reaching peak pickleball, and we're gonna have to backpedal it because no one can play tennis anymore. It's happening.
There you go. I do have another question. Terry, you had mentioned that the original mall developer built a subdivision to attract shoppers. Do you know which subdivision that may have been?
Well, I think what I mentioned is that the developer that we have now has a lot of background in residential development throughout the country and had worked on a similar concept, I think down near Atlanta, down south somewhere. So this was a big project for them. And there's been some learning curves along the way and challenges with logistics and supply chain and labor and all that. But, their wheelhouse is residential. And I don't have any specifics that I can point out without looking it up, but I know that they have a long history of doing residential development.
I think he was referring back to the original Hudson's, the 1954. You made a comment that they had
right.
to attract suburban shoppers.
Yes, and the name's escaping me, but it's a subdivision located right nearby, and I apologize for not being able to think of it, but it has some historic mid-century modern homes there. Smokey Robinson lived in one of those homes at one point, and I think it could be the Magnolia subdivision. And the mayor just did a bus tour, mid-century modern bus tour 2 weeks ago that went through that subdivision. So if you I can send you, Jim, the specifics afterwards so you can share with everybody.
Sure, sounds good. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions.
I do have a question. Terry, with the Costco Business Center, were there any special site considerations that make it different from a normal Costco that were?
Well,
other than maybe
I'll do a little plug for them. If you're a regular Costco member, you can go into the Costco Business Center. They focus more on small business retailers, party stores, offices, all that supply. They don't have a gas station. They don't have a food court. They don't have a pharmacy. But I think 60 to 65% of what you would find normally at a regular Costco they provide, but they provide in different quantities and different products mixes. They have a large walk-in cooler of food, packaged foods. So there's still a lot of things that the average consumer could get there. What you'll notice is that during the week, you'll have a lot of small businesses with their vans picking up supplies. Weekends are actually pretty good to go there as a resident. They're not as crowded as, it's kind of opposite with the normal Costco, but I just bought some dog treats for our dog treat stations there the other day, and they do offer a lot of other products.
Actually, Jeff, a follow-up question. You had mentioned that they're doing maybe call them community events or in the parking lot at
Flex
the
spaces is what we're calling them, yeah.
is that in partnership with the township, or is that the developer driven, or how's that work?
Well, it's the developer driven. We have a very ambitious developer who's looking to think outside of the box, and we're just trying our hardest to get out of the way of it. We have temporary use approval processes that he just fills out, you know, a year's worth of them ahead of time. And then there's some transient merchant applications for food truck rallies and things like that. And we have it's a very simple process. And he also has a year-long temporary banner permit that we issue to him so that he can have these different types of banners for different events, rather than having to come to us every weekend for a new use.
Okay. All right. Very good. Ryan, that's it on the questions.
Okay, great. I'd like to thank both Jeff and Terry for joining us today and providing their insight, expertise, and experiences. I also want to thank everyone for attending, and I look forward to seeing you at our next scheduled planners gathering, which is on July 24th. We'll have a discussion about brownfield programs and the resources available from the state and the county. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.